Okay, we were mentioning the personnel of the Starlighters. It changed a lot over the years, starting with two people. That's Pat McBride on piano, Eric Eggleton on drums, and that was affectionately referred to as the two-setters, but that was actually the first Starlighters. A year or two after that thing started, I got in the act and played bass for him. My name is Gary Taylor, but I go by Johnny Rollet also. So that's three, and then we added two more in the mid-'70s. Jeff Combs on drums and Rich D'Elia on lead guitar. And that's the basic five. That five format, we had people come and go, little changes, but that was the basic five people that did it.
Well, that endured up until the 90s. So that's the original five. And then, Randy shows up at some point at a recording in Springfield. I don't remember. But he really comes into the band kind of more full-time, really in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
We also bring in Doug Cole at that time. So, ultimately we got 7 Starlighters, but
Randy's
it's the three
keyboard.
of...
Randy's keyboard.
Yeah.
And Doug Cole plays bass and violin. The
and Randy plays accordion.
Oh yes, we must not forget the melodica. But it's the three of us that started this thing and have persevered throughout. So we're kind of the constants.
If ever any legal action, I think it's going to be our names on the block.
Well, I think that's true.
Considering the amount of money we made off of it.
Yeah, people will be after that. So we were talking about Queensway and the emergence of clown music and Richie and Jeff. I should have mentioned Jeff at the same time. To me, kind of, although various things happen, to me the next kind of significant thing that happens is, I guess Jeff moves to Chicago and we start doing some recordings at Jeff's places in Chicago. Clown music is now full bore. Jeff's usually coming up with a clown song when we get together, but we're doing other things, and there's still a lot of alcohol consumption going on at this point, by the way, and but there's also some really good music, and so one of those recordings in Chicago, one of the songs that really stands out to me is Shadow Passes. And I think it would behoove us to just play a little bit of that. So this comes from, I don't know what year. Anybody got a guess? Early 80s, late 80s somewhere?
Not late 80s.
Not late 80s, mid 80s.
Mid 80s.
And Jeff's living in Chicago, and we all, and the interesting thing about these recordings is they were fairly long up in Chicago. There'd be numerous days.
Yeah.
Seems like Eric and I might take a day. We were both in Indianapolis at the time, as I recall, and we might have to take a day off of work to go up there and spend the time with the gang.
You
might have to take a day after to.
It's worth it. It's worth it just to end Western civilization as we know it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's listen to Mr. Rich D'Elia with an emotional performance.
Tell just how alone you feel, and your shattered silent siege. Some warning like a shadow falls between your smile and me, and time stands still, standing by while the shadow passes, and pass it surely will. I recall Bohemia nights together by the sea. The seagulls mating in the Florida Keys. Yes, I know those days are long since gone. Somehow my love for you remains as strong and stronger, knowing you are growing into the woman I saw long ago you'd be. And yet some shadow falls between your smile and me, and time stands still. Love seeks its own harmony. True love finds a key and opens out the door before your loved one's destiny. I just hope my love and help set you free. It's all I ever wanted to see you be. Time may come before you know you look around, the shadow goes.
Yeah, there was a lot of good music up there, and different players would drop in.
Yeah, for instance, on that, right, we had a guest bass player.
Yeah. And Jeff's
whose
wife,
name nobody can remember.
You can't remember.
Jeff's wife, Kate
Mike,
Smith.
Steve, John, something like that.
Yeah.
There was a hot harmonica player.
Yeah, so I did a song up there in one of those sessions called
Paradise.
Escape from Paradise.
That was a great tune.
And
We'll hear that in a minute.
and the singer, guitar player, harmonica player from Jeff's band, his name was Jeff too, I think. I wish we could remember those guys' names, but
He was pretty good, wasn't he?
yeah,
Yeah,
he was
he was
good
good.
and he was fun to play with. He died early, like a couple years after we did that song, which I hope the song had nothing to do with it, but you never know.
You never know.
No. But yeah, there were a lot of interesting recording sessions in Chicago, a lot of good music, some real bizarre times. I can remember one night Kate took us around to a bunch of parties, and we're driving her all through Chicago and going to these parties. And, very odd. We're not really partying guys, but
Well, we did our partying in the studio.
We made a pretty good.
but we did. Yes, we did make a great attempt. I know I did.
Yeah,
And
that was on Shakespeare Avenue,
yeah,
just off of Western Avenue.
yeah, that's the spot I remember the most. And then I think he bought it when he bought his home. We also recorded in that.
Yeah.
I don't remember the address of that place. But that gets us. What else happens in the '80s? So there's at somewhere in that point there, and we talk about it in the Starlight Chronicles, or Eric, you do. It's this concept of the songwriters' workshop, right? Doesn't that happen in the '80s? Am I right here or not? That's all right.
There.
Well, regardless,
Early '80s, late '70s. That's accurate. It was
so what was that all about?
Well, Eric and Gary have a few things in common. One is a little bit of a experimental academic approach to this whole thing. That we're not destined to write this one song or another. That we could have a choice of what we do. So we used to get into writing songs that were different, experimental. And we'd do things like, what would it be like if we did this kind of song? And that got lumped under the title of Schoolboy, Songwriters Workshop. It's just our attempt to get better as songwriters and trying to formalize it somehow.
An exercise of sitting down and saying, okay, it's time, we're going to start writing a song now. And we got familiar with that process of what it took to put a song together.
Yeah.
As I mentioned in the book, Gary tends to prefer to have lyrics clearly in mind, or at least partially in mind, in order to help decide how the music should go. And I kind of work it the other way. And Pat, do you have a preference of where you start when you write a song?
I usually start with the music.
Yep.
And maybe have one phrase for a chorus.
Right.
One line maybe, and that's all.
Does the title come later?
Yeah, all the words in the title come later. They come last.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. You got people like Cat Stevens that are going to agree with you 100%. You work the music out later, and then he said he used to sing the melody part over and over and over again until some words occurred to him.
Yes. Scrambled eggs.
Yeah, scrambled eggs. Paul McCartney wrote Yesterday by doing scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
There's some other. The other side of it is probably what I agree with more, and Bruce was talking about it the other night. Bruce is saying you got to have a metaphor, and I think what he was talking about is you have to have an idea of the story and the things beyond just the song that you're talking about. You have, like what is this song about? What does it mean? When you have that part of it, you can fill the other details in later. But if you don't have that part, you're sort of shooting in the dark.
How many times have I heard that? What's this song about? What's this song about? So Songwriters Workshop cranked out maybe 10 tunes that were very deliberate. They were not written necessarily as personal, but some of them were. One of them, called Answer Me This, was a kind of a lullaby type of song for Pat's eldest daughter, Callie.
Callie really scored it. Callie had 2 different songs written to her. Is that right?
She did.
Yeah.
The other one was called Diamonds in the Sky, and that was from probably 1990. And we could hear that shortly, too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say that that song was pretty much genius. Genius level.
Song.
You just meant Diamonds in the Sky is the genius level song?
Yeah. You know,
Well, I suppose we ought to hear that one then.
Yeah.
that's a good excuse to play that one. Huh?
Yeah.
Isn't that a kick? 2. Long time ago, when your daddy was young, mommy and your daddy, they had fun. Well, they did not have your Cali, and here's the reason why. You were still a diamond in the sky. Back then, Bobby wore white shoes, white pants and white vest. He painted pictures so he'd be an existentialist. Now old Bobby wears gray suits, makes his pictures on TV, and everything changes, you see. Almost everything changes and no one knows why. But some things grow stronger while other things grow weaker and die. But don't you cry, there will always be diamonds in the sky. There'll always be diamonds in the sky. And your dad and Uncle Gary and Uncle Bob made a band, and they went to play their music out in cocktail land. Called themselves the Starlighters, and here's the reason why. Starlight looks like diamonds in the sky. But then everything changes and no one knows why. But some things grow stronger while other things grow weaker and die. But Callie, don't you cry, 'cause there will always be diamonds in the sky. There'll always be diamonds in the sky. A long time from now, you'll have kids of your own, and you'll laugh and say, my, how you grown. And Uncle Gary will be happy, and you know the reason why is that he will be a diamond in the sky. And your kids will ask you questions that moms ought to know, like where do we come from and where, oh where do we go? And Callie, you will know that there will always be diamonds in the sky. There'll always be diamonds in the sky.
We had an interesting, during that time, I was living on Broadway in Indianapolis, in Broad Ripple, and I had somehow cultivated a friendship with Johnny Casella, and he had come over, and I kind of feel like he was part of the songwriter workshop era. He was a famous keyboard player that ended up in Johnny Cougar's band.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And died young. I don't know.
Died
There's
real
people
young, huh?
that do the stuff with us and then die. I don't know. What, is there something there? We shouldn't go into that.
We're a bad influence.
So,
Played with the Starlighters, and now he's dead.
These songs, back to the songwriter workshop, these songs were done in, as demos, guitar, not a lot besides guitar and vocal. And then Gary took a trip out to, or actually probably moved out to San Diego, California, and joined his brother at a studio called Soundsations that I think you both had a ownership interest in, didn't you?
Yeah.
It was a family business. So you had these 10 songs. What was it like? How did you end up going to San Diego?
My brother had a studio, a pretty good studio in San Diego, and it seems like the sky was the limit. What the reality was, it's a real struggle to break even in the rock and roll business. There were so many people who wanted to be in the business and would really slash prices in order to make that happen. So I'd say that most of the studios that made it either had reached a critical mass where they would be able to take care of themselves, or they had an outside donor. It was just the early part of the business is really rough and competitive. Anyhow, I wasn't thinking any of it when I went out there. It was all about, boy, we're going to be able to record every day. We can record, a song a day, and we'll get somewhere, which isn't quite what happens, but you have to make a living. So we made a lot of songs for other people that were pretty good. So yes, I was in San Diego. That lasted from '83 early, I believe.
Yeah.
And then came back to the center of the country in the latter part of '85, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And '86, I think I moved to Indianapolis. '86 fall. About the time that Eric left, Eric and I were playing sort of a tag. Eric would move into a town, and then I would move into it after him, and then he would leave. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the songs were getting better, I thought, and we still kind of chugged along and did recording sessions, ping-ponging from city to city, depending on who decided to host the session. Then at some point, I think you kind of started burning out on trying to organize the sessions in your basement. And you said, let's move this to a different level.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It would just be. It'd become harder to get the whole thing organized.
Yep.
And I can't remember exactly the contributing factors to that. I think part of it was that we were spread out geographically more. But anyway, whatever. It seemed like the most logical way to do it was to go to Richie's house because he had stuff down in the basement. And so,
The clown toast.
but working with Richie, he was, so loose in his, planning that it was just, trying to lock things down. It was just so difficult. So we did one recording session. Gary came up for it. You were not there, but I think Randy might have been there. Do you remember this, Gary? It was Richie. Jeff was definitely there. There's some video from this one.
Where was this at?
He was in Richie's house.
Yeah, I remember that session.
And we recorded down in the basement, and this was one of those, I think this is where we did that one song. Richie had such a loose approach to music generally that sometimes it was just so hard to tell where he was.
Yeah.
He had a really strong vibe of his own, but it was hard for other people to latch on to it. I think this was the recording we were trying to follow him. Do you remember this? He was playing a keyboard, and we're kind of literally standing. I think one of us is playing bass, one of us playing guitar maybe, standing next to him, watching his hands on the keyboard so we can tell when he change it, and we couldn't do it. He was just unpredictable. But anyway, he was also unpredictable in kind of getting locked down on a date we're going to record, when we're going to record. So we did that recording, and it didn't seem like it worked out very well. It was just such a hassle to put together, not only Richie's part, but all of us. And then so, okay, we'll try it in my basement. I don't have any recording stuff, but I talked to Gary, and Gary was going to bring the recording stuff up, which he did. And we got there in the basement, and we had a bunch of equipment laying around, and we had Gary's recording stuff. We were going to record, and then Amy called. She was pregnant, and she said, "Hey, I've got some, difficulties down here in Nashville. You need to come back." So Gary packed up and left, but he left his recording stuff there. And we did eventually record something, but Jeff ended up being the engineer, if you can imagine that. Yeah. And after that, then Jeff and I were talking, and he said, we just need to make this simpler, and let's just have somebody do this for us. And there'd been forays into recording studios before in San Diego, and you guys at someplace in Champaign Sound, Smith's, I do decide it was. Something
Indianapolis,
like that. And, Indianapolis. And anyway, we decided to go the route of going into record. So that's where we met Jim Albrecht and his company, Gary James, and they had a professional recording studio, and he was a professional recording guy. And that's where that relationship started. Well, that was 1994. We recorded February 94 was when Gary came and had to leave. And then following that fall, we did the first recording with Jim Albrecht, which started a relationship with Jim that lasted, I think, about 14 years. I think maybe 2008 or so was the last recording with him. And then we would do 2 or 3 recordings with him a year, and the core group that did that was me, Jeff, Richie, Randy, and Doug. And then Eric was there on several occasions, but Gary was infrequent. He was maybe there twice, I'm going to guess. I don't remember exactly how many you attended, but not many. And but we recorded a bunch of stuff through those years. And,
many songs.
Yeah, and that kind of all ended up as individual albums, Richie's, mine, Randy's, Jeff's, etc.
4 solo albums.
Yeah.
But those were compilations from many different years, done different recordings.
Different years, yeah. Almost all done at Jim's place, but not all. There were a few others. Right. But what's interesting about those years, so we had that going on.
We have video from those.
We have video from some of that, yeah. And but as I say, you guys were less frequent people attending those recording sessions, but at the same time, coming out of that songwriter workshop relationship, you guys had your old other thing going on, which was the Relay Show Band and the things that you did. So we had kind of 2 universes operating simultaneously kind of through the 90s, yeah. So the Relay Show Band, what was happening with that?
Well, it was a band of Johnny Relay and Bobby Show, which became Relay Show. And people kept asking where the show was, and never mind. It was just we were a part of the bigger group, but we had some similar ideas, Relay and Show did. And we just sort of went about it our own way. We were pretty ambitious. We probably wrote 20 or 30 songs in order to come up with about 7 or 8.
For an album.
For an album, yeah. And really liked the idea that the way to get quality is sometimes to do quantity. Just keep writing them and feel confident and make decisions and just do it, basically. Rather than fussing over one song to try to make it perfect. This is more like, yeah, that's pretty good, but let's try another one. And it seemed to work pretty well, actually.
At some point, we got enough songs to begin to say, okay, let's see how to shape and form an album. And some of the songs were created after that. And we talked about what songs need to fit in the box. And
Yeah.
songs went into the box, and so we're trying to listen to for a linear audio experience. So you, like an album, you put it on and it plays through, and that the songs would flow from one to the other and have either similar or contrasting sounds and feels, paces, subjects.
There were a couple of times where we had a song that me and everybody else, Bob, really liked the song. But there was another song that just fit perfectly with all the other songs. It's telling the story. And sometimes that second thing got the nod. It's sort of like the idea that the concept of the album is worth developing, and sometimes you have to leave some really great songs out of the mix.
Right.
That's just the way it has to be.
This was, Gary was living in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was living in Rockville, Maryland. And there was, for the most part, songs were written independently and given to each other and evaluated. And we didn't spend a lot of time together during that. We were working at a distance. But when we would get together, typically we would be trying to write new songs. That was the purpose of being in the same room. But oftentimes the songs generated were independent and sent back and forth. We had, I think there's 33 different CDs that were sent back and forth.
Yeah.
It was $15. I'd pay a premium so it'd get into your hands faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. While you were at Gales Lane.
Yeah, we would shoot those things back and forth.
Yeah.
And I think the result in the end was that there weren't really any songs that we didn't like. And there were a few songs that just really made everything else kind of look good. It was a good experience. I think there's really, if you want to put the time into making an album, that was worth doing all that.
Yeah. There's some good cuts on there. Did you ever hear them, or it was the first time? What was your first experience of the Money's Gone album?
Well, it seems to me it kind of arrived out of the blue.
Yeah.
And
Here's the album you didn't order.
yeah, there must be some mistake.
The neighbor didn't want it.
Yeah.
So,
Like
but it was great. I enjoyed listening. I called. So the song that really hit me was the Someway song. I thought that was just a wonderful song. So
we got that from a lot of people.
Yeah, I called up Gary because I thought it was a Gary song. I've since learned that you were part of a songwriter too. Didn't call you though. I called Gary and to tell him what a wonderful song that was. And I remember you were going to a soccer game, like I think it was your daughter's soccer game. And so I talked to you, and you were like in a car with some other people. And well, that song is really great. They probably don't know that you even write a song, a little, on the soccer. I don't know what the other soccer parents thought of that call.
Yeah.
There was a lot of packaging involved in that album too, more than the average. So,
An excellent job.
as I recall, it came with a business card too.
Yeah.
So
Eric did a great job. I
yeah.
had nothing to do with any of it. It's too good.
Yeah, it's fun. So maybe we'll hear some of
yeah,
those cuts.
let's play something from the Relay Show Band.
Okay.
Maybe someday your thoughts are gonna drift my way, rolling down the river, that infinite forgiver, and I'll be standing there. And maybe sometime your eyes are gonna meet with mine, and without a clue or care, you'll be standing there some way, some I've never stopped thinking about you. You know I don't even try. I've never stopped looking for you in the corner of my eye. And maybe somehow through the fog of the here and now, I'll be coming rambling on that road that never ends, and I'll see you standing there. And maybe sometime your eyes are gonna meet with mine, without a clue or care, I'll be with you there some way, somewhere.
Yeah, the Relay Show Band, after Money's Gone album, you did another album.
Yes.
What was that one called?
That was called Takeout, and we produced, we each produced tracks that got contributed to the album Money's Gone. Those tracks got assembled in Gainesville, Florida at Gary's brother's studio, Glenn's studio, called Tailor Made. And I went down there for a week, and we camped out in Glenn's studio and put those tracks together. We brought in some studio musicians to supplement some of the songs. I don't think we recorded anything. Gary recorded keyboard parts down there too, to lay over. The final product rolled off the line in Florida, and then went to packaging and then distribution.
What year do we think that might have been?
It was the event in Florida, I believe, was in January of 2009.
Yeah, so I think by that time, I don't know when the last Gary James recording session was, but I think it might have been in 2008. So basically, these two parallel universes, the Relay Show Band and what was going on with Gary James Productions and all the recording there.
In the closed system.
In the closed system. They kind of, folded up their tents and went away at the same time, 2008, 2009 period. At Gary James Productions, the reason we quit recording there is because Jim Albrecht decided he wasn't going to record anymore, and closed up his shop. And so then that what do we do next? And I was personally burnt out of.
Well, you're trying to sell it to the Chicago guys. Say, you guys take it.
Yeah, exactly. Which I thought, so at that time, Jeff and Gary, I mean, not Gary, but Jeff and Doug and Randy were all living in the Chicago area. And I thought, well, why don't those guys take it over? That'd be better for them. And they wouldn't have to travel. And Richie and I could come up, and you guys, when you return, and do that. But I couldn't get any interest from those guys in organizing it. And Jeff was the guy to do it, but he was so involved in AA, and he spent so much time doing that he just didn't see that he could spend any time doing anything else.
And that was good stuff that he was doing.
Yeah. Which of Jeff being in AA, by the way, we might want to mention that, in the early days, there was a lot of alcohol consumption. But over the years, that dropped. I think Gary quit drinking the first amongst us. I quit drinking alcohol in '89. I think Gary did that before me. And Jeff quit in '90. So if you take the three of us out of the equation, that really drops the, per capita consumption. Richie, I will have to say, though, was a trooper and tried to pick up the slack as best he could.
Yeah.
But I think alcohol was a detriment to early recording sessions, and it diminished, became less so as time went on. That's just an aside. But back to the recording, we didn't get any takers in the Chicago area, and I just wasn't of a mind to start the whole thing over again with another studio in Indianapolis. And so basically it just petered out. And I thought at that time, well, what do you do musically? What do you want to do? And I thought, well, why don't you just not? So all this, up to this time, I think something worth mentioning is that we were never a band, really. We talk about like we are or were. The Rollet Show Band might have been a band, but the Starlighters generally were never a band. We were a group of songwriters, and we played backup for the guy who wrote the song.
Exactly.
And there was never, if you have a Richie song, it's totally different than a Gary song, which is totally different than a Pat song, which was totally different from, et cetera, et cetera. And, that's one thing that was unique. We were a kind of a songwriting cooperative or something,
right,
as opposed to a band. And but in doing that, you relied on the other guys. So you wrote a song for guys to play. You're going to get together with these guys, and you wrote a song so that there would be a drum part, so Jeff would play on it, and there'd be a keyboard part, and there'd be a guitar part. So you're thinking, I'm writing songs for a band. That was, I think, true our whole history. I think in the Relay Show Band, you guys writing what you did, you were thinking bands. Even though some of those songs are ballads and low key, I think you were thinking of a band, as we all were. And so at the end, 2008, 2009, after this recording, I thought, why don't you quit being a band and just do it by yourself? And so then I started working on playing, just by myself, solo act, go out with the guitar and play. And I got some gigs, and that's when I started doing that.
I love the thing in the book where you're talking about you had and I think it stems because you're a professional in the communications field. You had a philosophy that you tried to put to as you designed the act. And I thought you put that quite well, the idea of what did you want the listener to do? Yeah.
Well, when, as you know, like when we're doing communications projects, you're thinking, what do I want the audience to come away with after they see this thing? So for music, it should be the same, I guess. What do you want the audience to come away with? What thought process do you want the audience to go through when they see you play? So as I was putting together songs to play, what I wanted them to think was, number one, walk up here, that's a good song. Hey, that's a good song. And so I only picked songs that I thought were good. Not everyone would agree that they were good songs, right? But I thought they were, and I think my audience, or the audience that I was hoping to please, would think they're good. Number one, so you walk up, you hear something, oh, that's a good song. Next thing, you want to have something unique about it. So the next thought is, in the audience part, is as they hear the song, say, that's a good song, and I've never heard it done quite like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third part, to conclude the experience, would be, hey, that's a good song. I've never heard it done quite like that, and I like it. And that's what I was after.
Sold.
Yeah, that's what I was after. And so that's what we tried to do. And then when you came to town in 2013, I think you arrived in Indianapolis. And I think 2015, we started playing together. It was the same thing. So that was what we were after.
Right. That must have taken some courage to stand out there on a cold Saturday afternoon by your lonesome and try to play music for you so you'll enjoy it. That took some courage, I thought. Busking.
It was different than what we'd been doing before.
Yeah.
But it's been very rewarding. I've been doing it now for a number of years, 10 years, more years. I guess more than that. And 15 years, I suppose. And personally, I enjoy it. Hopefully the audience goes through that thought process and enjoys it too, but there's no guarantee.
Right. Well, I was delighted to hear that philosophy that you had. The key part, I think, was I've never heard it done like that before. I think that's where you set the hook. They know the song, and then they get invested in saying, well, what is he going to do with the song, or how is it going to sound? I thought that was insightful.
Yeah, well, it's fun. It was fun. I hope you enjoyed your half of the gig while we were playing together.
Oh, I did. I sure did. I know there was some kind of maybe I looked at it a little differently. I thought I was being real subtle and trying to join the Pat McBride experience. Apparently I wasn't. But I remembered there was a good 6 months that we were in town, and I didn't reach out to you, or we didn't have a lot of interaction. And then I invited you out for coffee over in Broad Ripple, and started talking about it, I guess. Mm-hmm. What would that be like? And I think that there was a natural, based on our two-setter experience. Mm-hmm. It's like you sing, play an instrument, I'll back you up.
Yeah. So we'd come full circle, really. So we started off with the two of us playing in a living room in Hessel.
Yep.
And ended up with the two of us playing again.
In Fountain Square.
Yeah, down. The difference was nobody heard us in the living room. But we did eventually, once we got Gary, that's when we went out and started playing in public. And then you and I, obviously, most of our gigs. Although we did spend a lot of time practicing in your basement, I think. But we played a lot. We played a lot of gigs. We had a lot of gigs. Yeah,
that was fun. I appreciated your patience as I was learning how to play harmonica. We'd kind of work out a part. You'd sing it to me or play it on the piano, and I'd try to echo it, get close to it anyway. You say, "Okay, fine, let's do it." And it was really fun. It was fun to practice.
Yeah, I had fun too. I thought we were a good duo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so how are we going to wrap this all up? What final thoughts might we have?
Yeah, I would guess that, we're still different. We weren't the same when we started. We're not the same now, and we'll keep changing. But I think I'm going to try to make at least one more massive album, like Money's Gone, and I'm going to let ride all the stuff we've done before. I consider pretty much just getting ready for the next one. So it means a lot to me to make a good album. So I'm going to put some effort into it. I'm thinking I'm going to take a 6 to 12 month kind of window to do what I want to do. Starlighter Past is interesting, but right now we're going to get through this round of remembering and honoring, and then for me it's get to work.
What do you think, in your view, like all this stuff that we've done, all these recording sessions, all these songs we've written, all these times we've spent together, not only, the three of us, but with Jeff and Richie and Doug and Randy, what out of all that stuff is most important to you, do you think?
I think it's just the music part is just a mirror of the people involved. I think we've been pretty decent as bands go about taking care of each other. Bands are like marriages; they can get really pretty ugly. But I think for the most part we've avoided that, and we're still trying it. We've lost a couple of members to the Grim Reaper. I'm sure we'll lose a few more, but as much as we possibly can, we've stood with each other, and you can hear it in the tracks.
I think it's been a very unique relationship and a very unique set of stuff that we've done. When we were recording with Jim Albrecht in his studio, he was fascinated by this whole thing, that we would get together periodically and come in, write a song, record it. He had never run it, anything like that. He had, bands that came in and recorded, and singing, individual artists who put together a band to back them up and stuff, but nothing like us. And he used to equate it in his mind, the way he got around it. He said, well, a lot of guys get together with their buddies and they go out for the weekend and they go fishing.
Yes.
They go out and they spend the weekend, they go out in the woods, and they fish and they drink beer and they tell stories and they have a good time.
They go hunting. They go to a professional sporting event.
Yeah, a lot of
And he
people do
said,
that.
and that's what you guys do, except you all create something. There's a creative aspect. You write songs, you come together, you create this music, and it's like what some other groups of friends do when they go fishing, but you are creating music. And he said, nobody else does this.
Yeah. One of the things I got a kick out of was the idea of making products. I was, in my career, I always kind of thought that I was a product development person. That's how I would look at it. And I would look at songs that I would write as little products, little brands. So I was interested in the packaging, as well as the writing of the music and performing of the music. And it was kind of an alternate universe of my work life. And I really valued it. I liked thinking in the back of my mind that, I also play in a band. Most people wouldn't know that, but, I kind of carried that in my pocket as I like being in a band.
And speaking of products, that Starlight Chronicles book is quite a product. You have created quite a product.
Yeah, it was fun to do, and I hope that it stays on people's shelves somewhere.
I think it will. I just can't tell you how great I think that is. I just love it.
And you've written a couple books.
I've written a couple books.
And
I have.
you didn't do the damn book. But you need an art director to work with, maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
You need the content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, if we think we're concluded, maybe it's time to go.
Yeah, I was thinking about our last session together. The very last session, it was held at Bay Colony Studios. And Gary came up from San Diego. I was living in Indianapolis. Pat was living in Indianapolis. We got together. We did maybe 5 songs. 2 of them you played, or we played together in the 2-setters, or 2 Starlighters. And Gary brought up a song that I thought was a real fitting, almost last song. It was our last recording session, and it was called Got to Go. What inspired that song, Gary?
I wanted to write a simple song. I wanted to write a rhythm and blues song. I wanted to write a song that the Yardbirds would consider playing. That was just sort of what I was interested in doing, and that's what it is. There aren't many songs like it. It mainly revolves around the Yardbirds and a few other bands. It's definitely rock music, but it has lyrics and certain message. So I don't know. I think I was a little disappointed when we recorded it. But in retrospect, it sounds pretty good. The drummer in particular.
Yeah, the drummer's good.
It's just really
Right.
Listen to it and you'll see what I mean.
Let's listen.
Without further ado, let's listen to it.
There we go.
In fact, we gotta go.
We gotta go too.
Baby, I got to go. I got something to do. Baby, you ought to know how I feel about you. You know I love you so. But baby, I got to go. Baby, I got to go. I got to go see the man. Baby, you ought to know the long-term plan. You know I love you so. But baby, I got to go. I got to go. Hey! About you, you know I love you so. But baby, I got to go. I got to go. Hey!
A long-term plan.
I got a long-term plan.
Yeah.
Baby, you gotta know.
But and Martin and she says, well, but, if he loves her so, why's he got to go? that's the question, isn't it?
So I was going to play it in that key. What do you think?
Play this chord here.
Pages is what you... Yeah, I got more pages. But this song was too long.
Just shorten it up a little bit.
1, 2, 3, 4. Looking back, what has changed? Looking back, are we the same? Cold-bred boys just leaving home, coming cool from school. Friday man, he is unbound, I'll be there too. Rock and roll sweet symphonies, hallelujah too. Looking back, what do you find? Looking back, what's on your mind? The clowns may rule the world, we may never know. Everything just comes undone. Baby, I gotta go. Pull the electric sword from the stone, plug the mother in. Looking back, what do you see? Looking back, do you see 3? Walking on my own, I will pass the lives of other lonely souls like me. They have their reasons, like me. They walk alone. Looking back, what do you see? Looking back, do you see 3? Looking back, what do you find? Looking back, what's on your mind? Looking back, what has changed? Looking back, are we the same? There's a beautiful thing. All right, that's all right.
Very cool.